Hey everybody. Today, me and Noah went to a swap meet yesterday. And once again, you'll have to excuse me because I am not a professional video maker or videographer or anything like that. Uh, so, yesterday, Noah and I went to a car show and swap meet and got the car outside there. It's a Sunday afternoon, really pretty outside. And I wanted to go over this. This is probably our prized possession right here. Um, this is probably the neatest piece I've ever owned, and more than likely will ever own, as far as rarity and coolness. Um, any y'all that know me on Facebook have probably seen this a million times because I post it all over every time I get a chance. What this is a magnesium big block Chevy block. Um, these were cast by a company called P&S Foundry. They were in Akron, Ohio. The proprietor of that company was a man named Paul Wright, and he. What I've heard is he had done a lot of casting for experimental stuff for some automakers and things like that. And I think this was a project of his, just a personal project that he would make these and sell them. From the old advertisements and things I've seen, you could buy these in magnesium, uh, cast iron, or aluminum. I think is how he offered them. I'm not sure of the configurations and things like that, but it's marked here P and S. I know his wife's name was Sue. So, and I am friends with his son and daughter on Facebook. After this block surfaced, I think they had reached out to me or I them. I really don't remember. But I believe P&S was Paul and Sue. Now, in some of the advertisements that I've seen, it says like power and speed or performance or speed, something like that. Um, I don't know the year that these blocks were cast. I would say, at least 50 to 60 years ago. This one in particular is new old stock. At some point, it had had cam bearings put in it, and and freeze plugs look like. I don't know if they came like that when you bought a new one with that stuff installed. Um, but there's no evidence of this ever being assembled or anything like that. It has uh, looks like billet steel main caps, or they could just be steel. I don't know. I'm not a metallurgist, but so it does have main caps, and I'm assuming it's been line honed. Um, so what these are, I was fortunate enough when this block surfaced to a man named Scott. We won't say the last names. A man named Scott reached out to me on Facebook and told me that his father worked at P&S for Paul, and his name was Sam. And I was fortunate enough to be able to talk with Sam on the telephone for about an hour several years ago, and Sam told me some stories about these, and just a lot of really neat information. I could have talked to him for hours because I really dig this stuff. Um, these blocks are cast off of a Winters Foundry ZL1 and or Can-Am blocks. Um, the only real differences that I have seen would be where the P&S crest is at. That's where the snowflake would be. The Winters snowflake foundry mark would be right here, and so I guess they put the P&S crest here instead of the instead of the snowflake. We are going to assemble this block to use in my son's 55 Chevy Gasser. Our plans are to we're going to build it as a ZL1. We have the most of the correct ZL1 parts, from the carburetor to the distributor to the cylinder heads to the crankshaft, all that. So we are building a ZL1 engine out of this, with all the correct parts, but instead of using, a Winters block, we're using this magnesium block. This block weighs around 68 to 70 pounds. You can easily pick it up with one hand, move it around. As far as a lot of common questions that we get are, coolant, stuff like that. I have done some research into the coolant to run in it. I know there's a waterless coolant. I know there's different options there, because obviously water is it degrades magnesium. So we'll figure that out. We'll be running a factory aluminum GM L88 style water pump on it. We aren't going to run it really hard. You know how sickening it would be to kick a rod out the side of this thing. So it'll be more for show and just be cool. We have a lot of other parts we'll get into later that we're using in conjunction with this engine in the car. A lot of magnesium. The whole vibe of that car, I guess, or the whole build will be a lot of magnesium. We have magnesium wheels and things like that, and but a lot of magnesium parts, as many as possible, or as many as I can afford, I guess we'll say it like that. I got this block from a man. Well, I'll start over and tell the story. One night I worked late at my job, and I got online, and being a magnesium nut, I wonder if they ever made any blocks, engine blocks, Chevy engine blocks. And I found an old post on Facebook, on the internet, from several years ago on a Corvette site, where someone had talked about these, and I said, oh man. And I remember telling myself right then that now there's one piece that I'll never own. I said that has to be incredibly rare, and I'll probably never lay eyes on one of those, let alone own one. And a few weeks later, someone on Facebook had sent me a picture that someone had one, and his name's Robert. He's in Arizona, and he had this block. And so I reached out to him on Facebook Messenger just to get some pictures or information or stuff like that. Well, come to find out, I had a message request from Robert, and from earlier in the year probably, and he was at the time I had an experimental aluminum GM 302 like Trans Am block that I had picked up, and I had some old Snowflake aluminum small block heads and some magnesium valve covers and stuff like that. Well, Robert had already been trying to contact me about that block, so we chit-chatted on the phone, and we talked about it, and what we came up with. I was like, well, what do you think about just trading? He does a lot of cheetahs, the little road race cheetahs that Bill Thomas was involved in, that worked at Nicky Chevrolet. They were the Chevy answer to the Ford Cobras, and apparently he needed my block to use in a cheetah. So what do you think about a trade? So both of us boxed up the blocks, and then we put them in UPS and held our breaths and prayed for the best, that they didn't get damaged or anything. And sure enough, mine showed up fine there, and this one showed up here. And obviously I was stoked, but I thought always that was a neat story that I tell. I found out these existed, and told myself that I would never find, own, or probably see one in person. And just a matter of 2 or 3 weeks later, I had one here. Not only that, but a new old stock one. So guys ask another question is, what's it worth? And I say I really don't know, because as far as I know, there are only a small handful of these in existence, and I don't know if there is possibly, there may be another new old stock one somewhere. I really I I couldn't tell you. And if someone does, there are other ones out there. I know of maybe one or two, and so I couldn't say on a value. I don't know. I guess it just depends on, I would think that they're probably somewhere along the lines of an aluminum Yinko block, maybe. I guess it's like the old saying, it's worth what somebody will pay you for it, and I don't have any intentions of selling it anyway. We want to assemble it. The the uh, the Speedway Museum in Lincoln, Nebraska contacted me about putting it, in the museum, displaying it, and I told them no, I have to decline, but they were like, well, if you don't mind us asking why, and I said, because we're assembling it, and we're going to use it. And I think they thought I was off of my rocker, but it's like Sam told me that worked for Paul. He said we built those to run them, to be engines, and we really want my son's car to be one of a kind, and I don't think it really gets any more one of a kind than this as far as an engine goes. So I'm just trying to think about questions that people had, but that's about all the information. I'm probably one of the foremost experts as far as information goes on these blocks, because like I said, I've talked to family members, and from what I've gathered from Sam, Sam obviously knows a lot more than I do, but I'm just gathering what I found from Sam, and I would like to talk to him again here pretty soon. And he's a very smart guy, and from the people that knew Paul, they said that he was a brilliant man. He was that he was absolutely brilliant, and a good man. So it's just a piece of history, and that's what we like over here is historic, rare pieces. And we started this YouTube channel, to share some of the things that we've accumulated, and my son Noah's and I, and my journeys and adventures that we get into. So this is just one that I thought we'd start with, since this is probably the best piece that we own, and the most rare and unheard of. A lot of people online, guys online, they just don't believe it. And I actually made a video the other day where I picked it up with one hand, because everyone says that's cast iron, and it's just spray painted cast iron, and they never made that. But I guess this video will serve that purpose too, that here it is. And so I'm doing the best I can here to make a video and share the information I can. But we'll follow along with the build of this as we get going. We have pretty much all the parts we need for it. We need some rods right now that I have to get, but we have the pistons, the crank, some good cylinder heads we have to go pick up, intake manifold, carburetor. We have the factory transistorized ignition, water pumps, so oil pan and covers. So right now that's where we're at, guys. But thank you for watching our channel, and if you like this kind of stuff, then subscribe to it and follow it, because we're going to try to put out videos probably almost daily, sharing some things like this.